Hey everybody, and Tony here with a long overdue review of Giuseppe Verdi's Les Vepres Siciliennes, which was live a few weeks ago from the Bayerische Staatsoper. The conductor was Omer Mayer-Welber. The production was done by Antu Nunes Romero. The sets were done by Matthias Koch. The costumes were done by Victoria Baer. The choreographer was Dustin Klein. The lights were handled by Michael Bauer. The dramaturgy was handled by Rainer Karliczek, and the chorus master was Stellario Fagone. I mainly knew this opera through the Italian version I Vespri Siciliani and some of its really famous arias consisting of Elena's Bolero, Merce di le tue amiche, Arrigo's Giorno di Pianto, and Procida's O tu Palermo. What's even more interesting is that this was Verdi's second French grand opera that he composed, with the first one being Jerusalem, which was a reworking of I Lombardi alla prima crociata. After its premiere in 1855, Verdi tried to make an Italian version, initially with Giovanna Guzman, with the action being transported to Portugal during the Portuguese and Spanish War. Unfortunately, Verdi was entirely displeased with the results, so much so that in 1861, the Italian version I Vespri Siciliani premiered. The basic plot to this opera goes like this. Now, since this is a historical drama, the action is set to 1282 in Palermo, Italy. And before the opera begins, Procida has been nearly wounded in his battle with the French. Meanwhile, the French governor, Guy de Montfort, has made illicit love to a woman who in turn bore his son Henri. The abducted woman flees from Montfort's grasp, and Henri was raised to hate Montfort, who in fact is his father. On the flip side, the Duchess Hélène weeps for her long-lost brother, Duke Frederick of Austria, and she vows to avenge his death. The plot thickens as Montfort reads a letter from the woman he abducted and raped, and actually finds out that Henri was his son. Father and son reunite, but with a few reservations. That is until Hélène is led up to being executed, but Montfort stops the execution, thus proclaiming that Sicily will be pardoned and Henri and Hélène will be married. The couple is extremely overjoyed, and the opera ends with the Sicilians throwing themselves to the French as Montfort pronounces Henri and Hélène husband and wife. So as one can tell, there's not just a love story going on between Henri and Hélène, but it's also a tale about identity in Henri's case, as he is one half French and one half Sicilian, and even national pride in terms of Procida's love for Sicily, and of course, Montfort's complexities as a character. With that said, let's get on to what I thought about the production. Overall, I found it to be dark, haunting, and kind of creepy. There were definitely some elements I enjoyed so much. I loved the dark atmosphere. I loved that haunting vibe that it was able to give off, and it was done in a way that showed the oppression of both the French and the Sicilians. However, there was one thing I was not crazy about, and that was the techno ballet during the fourth act. Now, part of me did not understand why there was techno music added into an opera, and even more so in a ballet, as I felt like it kind of damaged the overall authenticity of the libretto, and it also damaged the overall feeling of a period piece. I would have loved to have a more classical sounding piece being put on there, something that's more akin to Verdi's time, but with this particular inclusion, I kind of found myself scratching my head. Maybe it's just because of the fact that techno music seems to be very rampant these days, considering that it's the 21st century, but it didn't really have to shove it down our throats. With that gripe aside, I still have to say that the costumes looked rather elegant, and I really love the gothic costumes for each of the characters. whether it be Elena's black gown or even that skull face painting some of the characters have, or even that gothic makeup almost all the characters have. It's very fascinating all the way through. And what's also interesting about Procida's costume is that it's meant to say that he comes from the older world. Now, while the other characters are donned in 19th century costumes, Procida seems to be someone who stepped out of a time machine and basically sees the modern environment around him. And of course, what more can I say about Elena's wedding dress? She just looks like an angel. So overall, while I do like the production in terms of how hauntingly gothic it can be, there was that techno dance scene that I was not a fan of. But when all is said and done, the costumes were absolutely elegant to everyone who participated. And now we get to the singers, starting off with Rachel Willis-Sorenson, who sang the role of the Duchess Helene. Now, what you need in this particular role is a true dramatic coloratura soprano. There has been no doubt that many a dramatic coloratura soprano or spinto soprano would go out of their way to sing this particularly challenging role. Much like Norma, Imogene, Anna Bolena, Maria Stuarda, Elisabetta from Roberto de Vereux, Marguerite de Valois from Les Huguenots, Isabelle from Robert le Diable, Elvira from Hernani, Medora and Gulnara from Il Corsaro, Giselda from I Lombardi, and many other great roles for a true dramatic coloratura soprano. One does not only need to have that florid and fluid singing, but also that meatiness and steeliness evidenced in a lot of spinto sopranos. And what more can I say about someone as grand, luxurious, and simply put, beautiful as Rachel Willis-Sorenson? I mainly heard a couple of clips of her on YouTube singing Dich teure Halle from Wagner's Tannhäuser, and I thought she had a luxuriously gorgeous and focused voice. And those were the same sentiments I had with her performance as the Duchess Helene. She was able to sing all of her lines with such great focus, great clarity, and she was so declamatory in everything she did. She may not be a dramatic coloratura soprano a la Joan Sutherland or Christina Dortecom, but I still have to give her lots of credit in terms of how she was able to navigate this challenging role. Her coloratura work was solid all the way through, especially evidenced in her rendition of Merci, jeunes amis, the French version of Mercè di l'état amique. She was not only a fabulous singer, but she was an equally fine actress, thus embodying this role with a great stature, tall, beautiful, elegant, and regal. She was able to inhabit this role with the best of her abilities, and for that, I salute her for all of her efforts. Singing her lover, Henri, was the Italian lirico-spinto tenor Leonardo Caimi. And what you need in this role is either a full lyric tenor or a spinto tenor. This role combines the florid and fluid singing found in roles like Percy from Anna Bolena, Lester from Maria Stuarda, Roberto de Vereux, Arturo from I Puritani, Liebenskopf from Il Viaggio a Rome, Arnold from Guillaume Tell, Idreno from Semiramide, and many other great roles for a full lyric tenor, and combines the steelier and meatier quality of a spinto tenor found in roles like Hernani, Carlo Moore from I Masnadieri, Arvino from I Lombardi, Carlo from Giovanna d'Arco, Rodolfo from La Boheme, and many other great roles for a spinto tenor. He not only has to sing some fine high notes, but he also has to be a noble and dashing actor. And I thought that Leonardo Caimi did a fine job with this particular role. Yes, in the beginning, he was kind of frigid in terms of his acting and singing, but his efforts got a lot better in the later parts of the opera. He was basically warming himself up, and the results were absolutely fine. This is definitely a young and awesome spinto tenor that I have to look out for more often. Yes, he may not have had the more exciting quality in voices like Franco Corelli or Mario del Monaco, or even that of the more ardent singing found in Nicolai Gedda, but I still have to give him a lot of credit in terms of how he was able to embody Henri. He was able to make him young and dashing and noble, but at the same time, he was also able to make him quite determined as a character. And it also helped that he had a solid technique to be found in his full lyric / spinto tenor voice. George Petean was an absolutely noble Guido Monfort, and this role truly requires a dramatic baritone. Any baritone who has sung the likes of Nabucco, Alberich, Telramund, Courvenal, Germont from La Traviata, Scarpia, Gianni Schicchi, Michele, Le Grand Prêtre de Dagon, Pandolf, and many other great roles for a dramatic baritone have also flocked to sing this particular character. He not only needs to sing his lines with such power and strength, but he also has to combine that with some lyricism. And I thought that George Petean was an absolutely focused, strong, and determined singing actor. The way he was able to imbue this role with the appropriate amount of virility and charm made him all the more welcoming as a singing actor. And his vocal assets were certainly great all the way through. And it's all thanks to that rich and finely tuned dramatic baritone voice which made him stand out so well. Erwin Schrott was a rather solid Procida. Now with this role, you need to either have a basso cantante or a basso profondo. Any basso who has sung the likes of Philip II, Sparafucile, Ferrando from Il Trovatore, Il Commendatore from Don Giovanni, Osmin from Die Entführung aus dem Serail, Sarastro from Die Zauberflöte, the Grand Inquisitor from Don Carlo, and many other great roles for a true basso cantante or profondo, certainly needs to have a lot of heft and a good amount of lyricism to make this role come to life. And even though I have to give a good amount of credit to Erwin Schrott in terms of his musicianship, I thought that his voice was not particularly suitable to sing this particular character. I would have loved to have someone like, let's say, René Pape or Constantin Gorny or any other basso cantante or profondo to sing this role. Erwin Schrott is mainly a bass baritone, and I should know because I've been following his career for about 14 years, and he seems to specialize in all of these dashing and almost anti-heroic parts, like Escamillo from Carmen, and even both Leporello and Don Giovanni from, of course, Don Giovanni. And yes, his voice did lack the meatiness of, let's say, Boris Christoph, Nikolai Gyaurov, Gottlob Frick, and many other bassos of the past, but in spite of everything I said about him, I still think that he uses charm and his brand of virility to his advantage. He was able to make Procida a noble, dashing, and a pretty strong character to boot. He was able to sing his lines really well with a pretty good technique, and he was able to sing O toi Palermo with the appropriate amount of grace, even though I would have loved to have a true basso singing this part. But I digress. I still have to salute Erwin Schrott for everything he had to accomplish as Procida. He may not be a true basso, but I still have to salute him in terms of his efforts as a singing actor and a pretty good musician to boot. Helena Tsubanovic was a gorgeous Ninetta. And even though this role isn't as huge as the plot demands it, she still needs either a lyric mezzo or a mezzo contralto to sing this particular role. Some singers who would do the role of Ninetta would also flock to sing the third lady from The Magic Flute, Smeton from Anna Bolena, and many other fine character parts for either a mezzo-soprano or even that of a contralto. And I thought that Elena Tsubanovic did a fine job with this particular role. Granted, she is more of a dramatic mezzo, but she was able to scale down that meaty voice of hers and make it sound more lyrical with a role like this. She was able to make the best out of this particular character, and for that, I salute her. Alexander Milev was an absolutely noble, virile, and absolutely dashing Lord of Bethune. And even though this role isn't as huge as Procida, he still needs either a basso cantante or a bass baritone to get the job done. And I thought that Alexander Milev was just amazing in terms of his voice and in terms of his stage presence. He has that roundness and richness I love in many a basso cantante, and he certainly has a wonderful future ahead of him. Johannes Kammler was an equally dashing Count of Vaudémont. And with this particular role, yes, it's not as huge as Procida, much like Bethune's, but it still needs either a bass baritone or even that of a basso cantante to also get the job done. And there are also some cases in which singers who would sing Bethune and Vaudémont would also flock to sing the likes of Banco, Hunding, and many other great roles for either a basso cantante or a basso profondo. Johannes Kammler is more of a lyric baritone, and even though he sang this particular role really well, I would have preferred it if a bass baritone were to sing this particular small part. But regardless, I still have to salute Mr. Kammler in terms of his peerless musicianship. We also had such fine singing found in Matthew Grill's lyrical and absolutely fine Danieli, Galeano Salas's equally lyrical Ma Foi, Callum Thorpe's dashing Robert, and Long Long's handsome Thibault. So overall, the singing was absolutely great all around. The star for me certainly had to be Rachel Willis-Sorenson in terms of her grace, beauty, and nobility that she was able to imbue as the Duchess Hélène. And the conducting done by Omer Mar-Velba was energetic, brisk, and it was really well done in a lot of occasions. Sure, there were times the tempi did tend to be a little bit inconsistent, but I still have to give him a good amount of credit for leading the chorus and orchestra of the Bayerische Staatsoper, and of course, the chorus and orchestra of the Bayerische Staatsoper were excellent. So overall, with a dark and creepy production, some fabulous singing to be found, especially by Rachel Willis-Sorenson, and such fine conducting done by Omer Mar-Velba, then this is definitely a very fine experience I had with Verdi's Les Vepres Siciliennes. And for those of you who watched this particular live stream from the Bayerische Staatsoper, what did you think of it? Did you feel like Rachel Willis-Sorenson stole the show as the Duchess Hélène? Was there another singer who stole her thunder, whether it be Leonardo Caimi as Henri, Erwin Schrott as Procida, or George Petean as Montfort? Or did you feel like there was someone who stuck out like a sore thumb? Comment below and let me know. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for yet another Verdi opera review. And this time, it's Aida, live from the Kungliga Operan, starring Christina Nilsson as Aida and Katarina Dalaiman as Amneris. So until then, happy Easter, everybody!